Be forewarned. If you are easily upset or don't have the stomach for controversy, do not listen to this program.
And the economy of Western Europe is approximately 8 times greater than the economy of Russia.
I would make an argument for NATO just simply because I've seen the movie Independence Day.
Yeah.
And I feel like you need to have...
In case there's an invasion from outer space.
Yes, you got it.
I think that's a valid point. I mean, it's idiotic, but it's a valid point.
I can hear him say,
taking egomania to a whole new level here on The Decline and Fall of America, formerly known as the Jim Greenfield Show, starring Jim Greenfield. I'm here with my producer, Stuart Rice, formerly known as Stuart White. Quote of the day: something's rotten in the state of Denmark. William Shakespeare. I know you're not going to ask me who William Shakespeare is.
I feel that's pointless to ask you who William Shakespeare is.
William Shakespeare is the guy who said, "What a tangled web we weave when first we practice to deceive." And if he didn't say it, somebody else did. The first topic comes to you from the Continue on Their Way As If Nothing Had Happened department. Bob Woodward has come out with a big new book. A big new book called, what's it called? It's a single word, but I'm drawing a blank, and I didn't write it down. I haven't actually read the book.
I'm checking on that right now.
Hey, you want to close
and
that?
Also trimming your hedges.
Thank you. Close that door.
There we go. That got real loud real fast.
So what's the name of the book?
The name of the book is... Oh, come on.
Oh, no, it's not. Well,
Oh, it's not.
let me just disclose, in the interest of full disclosure, I know Bob Woodward.
You know him personally?
Bob Woodward is a friend of mine. Well, not a close friend, but I did meet him once. And I actually met him at a dinner at Harvard Kennedy School of Government, where we were giving an award for investigative reporting. And I asked him, "Were you Robert Redford or Dustin Hoffman?" And you know what his answer was?
What was it?
He said, "Well, I'm not going to answer directly," he said, "but I'll tell you this. When women meet me for the first time, they're always disappointed at how I look." So I took that to mean that he was Robert Redford.
Robert Redford.
Anyway.
Fear.
Oh, yeah, Fear. Okay. So Woodward's written this book, which makes the case that people around President Trump think he's an idiot. And, you know, the book isn't going to stuff. You've heard this all before, so I'm not going to get into much detail of that.
Well, I feel like there's
claiming
a lot of documents and a lot of people write the same thing.
Well, it's consistent with the claims of Anonymous,
right? And a lot of other people.
But curiously, Woodward was very critical of Anonymous, and I don't know whether it's because he thought it was like competition for, to his book. But he said, well, Anonymous didn't give any details and wasn't specific. But Woodward's book it's all uncorroborated. It's all sources that he doesn't disclose, undisclosed sources. So it's hard to verify when you don't know who said something. Somebody says this and that. Anyway, one of the things that Woodward mentions, and again, I don't see it being my job to defend Donald Trump, but I just call it like I see it in particular cases. And I think I'm pretty balanced about evaluating Trump, the good, the bad, and the ugly. I'm not a Trumpanista, obviously. But I like him a lot better than I expected to, and I've talked about this before. So I'd say it's my job to defend Trump. But there was something I saw Woodward saying on TV that didn't make a lot of sense to me. One of the indicators that Trump is an idiot is that he's asking questions that don't make any sense. For example, in foreign policy, it's reported that he was raising the question with our defense experts, Secretary of Defense, top level people in defense and security. Questions such as, what does the United States get from having troops in South Korea? Second, what does the United States get out of defending Taiwan against China? And third, what does the United States get from being in NATO? Now, these are deemed to be questions that you don't need to ask because the answer is so obvious. Obviously we need to keep troops in South Korea because otherwise North Korea may attack South Korea and China may get involved. And, South Korea is an important ally. It's a wealthy, prosperous country, needs to be protected. Blah 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 blah. Why are we defending Taiwan? If we don't defend them, China's going to just go in there. They're going to take them. And what is Taiwan? For those who don't know, this hasn't been in the news in recent years, but it used to be a major issue. I mean, in the 1960 presidential election, it was a huge topic of debate between the candidates. The island of Taiwan was taken over by the nationalists after the Chinese Civil War in 1948. The nationalists lost, the communists won. The communists took over the mainland, and the nationalists fled to the island of Taiwan. Well, over the decades that followed, Taiwan became an economic miracle. It became one of the Asian tigers. It became a very prosperous, successful country, and eventually became a democracy. But China still regards Taiwan as part of China, not as a separate country, and they're constantly threatening Taiwan. And the main thing that keeps China from going in and taking over Taiwan is us. So, Trump's daring to question these things, and, he says, what do we get from being in NATO? Now, I don't think that that's an indicator of how stupid he is. I think it's an indicator of a guy who doesn't take conventional wisdom as being gospel. Now, Donald Trump came into office probably knowing less than any president in history. Mm-hmm. I mean, other presidents have come in not knowing very much. Obama didn't know much. He served 2 years in the Senate.
Right.
Before that, he was a state senator.
You could definitely argue that Obama did not have as much as other presidents.
Well, George W. Bush didn't know anything.
He didn't know anything.
Bill Clinton didn't know anything. All of these guys came into the federal government after being, well, not Obama, but Bush and Clinton. They'd been governors. Mm-hmm. They'd spent most of their lives dealing with state politics. They didn't know the federal issues very well. The last president who came into office knowing what he was doing was George H.W. Bush. So they learn on the job. They all learn on the job. But Trump came in knowing less than anybody. I mean, he just, during the campaign, he's blowing smoke. I could see right through it. It's like, this guy didn't know what he's talking about, okay? He came into office not knowing anything. Having said that, however, he's, like others before him, he's been learning on the job. Mm-hmm. He's been learning on the job. And I don't really have a problem with a guy who comes in and says, what do we get from having troops in South Korea? Now, I personally believe that we should have troops in South Korea. We got to have them there. I don't believe in isolationism. I think the United States is the world's superpower. We have major interests to protect around the world. We preserve the peace. This is a Pax Americana. The world is relatively at peace, primarily because of American power. So, I don't agree with the idea that, we should withdraw our troops from South Korea. But I don't have any problem with the president coming in and saying, well, what are they doing there? Why do we need them there? Asking the question. Same with Taiwan. I think we have to defend Taiwan, but I don't have a problem with the president coming and saying, why are they there? Why are we doing? Think it through. Just because we've been doing something for 50 or 60 years doesn't mean we need to keep doing it.
I completely agree with you.
So do I. I agree with you that I'm right. NATO, same thing. NATO, I can see why we're in NATO, but I can also see, NATO was formed to protect Western Europe against the Soviet Union. Well, the Soviet Union doesn't exist anymore. And the economy of Western Europe is approximately 8 times greater than the economy of Russia. So do we still need the United States defending Western Europe from Russia? And how much should we spend to do that?
I would make an argument for NATO just simply because I've seen the movie Independence Day.
Yeah.
And I feel like you need to have...
In case there's an invasion from outer space.
Yes, you got it.
Yeah. I think that's a valid point. I mean, it's idiotic, but it's a valid point. So,
also,
and I'm not saying zombie threat. That's, I think that's real. I think there are real zombies. I run into them frequently, in fact, in my business. But, I'm not saying the United States should withdraw from NATO, but I'm glad that we have a president who comes in and asks these kind of questions, and I don't think that means he's an idiot. I mean, he may be an idiot, but I don't think that proves that he's an idiot. No, seriously, my take on Donald Trump is he doesn't have the same kind of intelligence as some other presidents have had. He certainly knows Barack Obama. Obama is very eloquent and articulate, and is academically gifted. Donald Trump probably has some kind of a learning disability, I would bet.
Right.
But
Yes, I
he
would
does
agree.
he does have street smarts. He's
Yes,
definitely
there
got
is
street
there is
smarts.
a level of intelligence that he has. I have a hard time calling anybody an idiot. He's pretty close. Like he is very.
But
There are a lot of things about him that really point to he's either got a mental illness or a learning disability. To your point, but
don't
you're
call me
right.
but.
However, it should
Surely.
not. I agree with you that he should be judged on his policies. And I
You
think
got that
those-
microphone too far away.
Because you don't want to hear when I can't because the cord's too your cord is too short.
Yeah.
That's
Your
something
cord's too short.
no guy likes to hear that. I think it should be based on the policies. I agree with you on that, and you like to hear me say I agree with you.
No, I haven't.
You don't like it when I agree with you?
Not particularly.
Oh. Okay. Well, then I rescind everything I'm saying.
Okay. Well, I mean, don't say it just to please me.
I'm not saying it just to please you.
Anyway,
I'm
what were you saying? Oh yeah, Trump. You were saying about Trump that he's we're agreeing that he's street smart.
Yeah, I agree. He does have a level of intelligence.
Bear in mind, this guy went up against 16 experienced Republican politicians to run for president. And he beat every one of them, including Ted Cruz, who was an extremely smart guy. Who was a top student at Harvard Law School.
It was not a strong lineup. It was not a strong lineup.
Well, you don't think Jeb Bush and Marco Rubio and John Kasich, you don't think they were strong candidates?
I did not think that any of them were strong.
They didn't look strong up against Trump.
Well,
he destroyed them all.
The Democratic side, too. Yeah, I mean, I just feel like our quality of candidates is...
But he has an instinct for publicity and for going for the juggler, and he managed to make the other candidates look like fools. Now that is it takes a certain kind of talent. Now, I'll say that having, I didn't know that much about Donald Trump years ago. One of the first, I heard about him in real estate and his TV show. But one of the first things where he got a major amount of attention was he got into a shouting match with Rosie O'Donnell, and he was like attacking Rosie O'Donnell and calling her a fat slob and disgusting and all this stuff. And my reaction to that was like, what is this guy doing? He's a billionaire real estate investor, and he's getting into this idiotic shouting match with his other idiot, Rosie O'Donnell. And I thought, there's an old Chinese saying, if you get into an argument with a fool, a passerby won't know which one is the fool. And that was the way I kind of reacted to that. So I didn't come into this thinking, oh boy, Donald Trump, he's this great guy. And I remember watching him giving a speech one time to a bunch of college students, asking, talking about real estate and business. And my reaction to him is, well, they were all smitten with him. They just were like, they were kind of like starstruck that this famous rich guy is talking to them. I thought he came across as a blowhard. So I wasn't coming into this thinking what a great guy Donald Trump was. Like I say, I judge him by their policies. Anyway, you get this Woodward book, and then you get this. As I say, I feel like his willingness to question conventional wisdom does not indicate that he's an idiot. In fact, I see that as a sign of intelligence. But he's gotten into controversy because he called on the Department of Justice. He asked Jeff Sessions to investigate Anonymous, this anonymous character who wrote the anonymous op-ed in the New York Times claiming that Trump is out of control and his White House is in chaos and the nation is being protected by basically bureaucrats who work in the administration who are frustrating Trump's policies rather than supporting them. And so when Trump calls for the Department of Justice to investigate, to find out who this anonymous is, the Democrats and the liberals are appalled. They're appalled that he's politicizing the Department of Justice. Even Obama criticized him for politicizing the Department of Justice. Now, what I don't understand about that is, that Barack Obama politicized the Department of Justice probably more than any other president in history. Obama not only politicized the Department of Justice, but he used the DOJ, the IRS, and the EPA to go after his political enemies. I recommend a book about this by John Fond called Obama's Enforcer, which was all about Attorney General Eric Holder and how he was totally politicized. And everything he did was designed to help Obama and go after his enemies. And, I mentioned in the last episode, I mentioned the prosecution of Dinesh D'Souza, who was a well-known critic of Obama, who wrote books criticizing Obama books. And they put him in jail on a frivolous election law violation charge. What about the IRS going after the Tea Party? Remember that? Nobody disputed that happened. The IRS totally, for a period of years, was refusing Tea Party affiliated groups when they applied for tax-exempt status. And the IRS wouldn't give them the status. They wouldn't give it to them, even though they were totally legally entitled to it. Why? Because it kept them out of the political campaigns, because they were anti-Obama. Total politicization of the government under Obama. The media never said a word about it. But Trump makes one offhand comment. Says, oh my God, this is terrible. He's trying to politicize the Justice Department. What a crock. The Department of Justice has always been politicized. It's always been political. And in fact, under President Trump, the Justice Department is the least, well, it's highly politicized, but the astonishing thing is that it's politicized against Trump. He's the first president that I know of who didn't have a Justice Department that was working for him. They're working against him. So he actually, in that sense, he is not politicized the Department of Justice. I'm not saying it's because Trump is so saintly and virtuous that he would never dream of doing such a thing. He's not doing it because he can't. Now, that may change in the future if he doesn't get assassinated and he gets Jeff Sessions out of there. He may succeed in doing the Department of Justice what other presidents have done. Okay, this is Jim Greenfield with a boundless self-confidence, unaffected by lack of actual achievement. Star of The Decline and Fall of America, starring Jim Greenfield.
You're welcome for listening to another brilliant installment of The Decline and Fall of America starring Jim Greenfield, formerly known as The Jim Greenfield Show. If you have a topic you would like Jim to talk about, or if you think Jim is brilliant and want to cheer him on, or you think Jim is an idiot that doesn't know what he's talking about, send an email to jimgreenfieldshowpodcast@gmail.com, follow the show on Facebook at Decline and Fall of America, or on Twitter at JGS Podcast, or you can call and leave a message for Jim at 503-512-0811, and your message will likely get played on the show. And now, our beautiful outro music, The Ode to Jim.
14 years on the radio, Jim Greenfield served humanity. His bosses fired him 7 times. They said he's no Sean Hannity. Greenfield tried to stay out of trouble and be discreet as best he could. He claims the reason he got canned behind the mic, he's just too good. Jim's enemies tried to silence him in panic and hysterica, 'cause Jim Greenfield blames them for the decline and fall of